Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. So, Rachel Dolezal is back in the light again. Netflix next month will be airing a documentary about Rachel. I think a lot of people by now know this woman helped to create lots of controversy with the term racial, um, transracial identity. And so here, this is in the Independent newspaper, and it's entitled "Netflix is Getting Backlash for Rachel Dolezal's Documentary." And so it's already looked at as being divisive. And so you see, she has a son. Of course, he is biracial, but he expresses himself in a small clip about how it's affecting his life in more of a negative way rather than positive. So I'm going to try to read the article and then go up and possibly view the clip. So Netflix has announced a documentary on Rachel Dolezal that is coming out, and it's going to be out in April, and people are not happy about it. So the streaming platform will release a documentary titled The Rachel Divide, which will show what Rachel's life has been like since it was revealed that she's actually white and feigned being an African American. So, in the clip that has been released from the forthcoming documentary, Dolezal's son, she should get um, that out of the limelight, and she gets really emotional about it. And so she goes on to tell him her side of it and why she did the documentary. So some of the negative reactions appearing on Twitter have stemmed from the involvement of Dolezal's children in the documentary. And one of the users said that she felt bad for the kids going through so much undue stress because of the racial fetishization. And so someone put this on Twitter by the name of Raven. I feel so bad for Rachel Dolezal's son in the Netflix teaser. This woman is raising black children and essentially causing them undue stress by adding her whole media circus around her racial fetishization. She should have faded into the background and let her kids be kids. So actress Patricia Arquette tweeted this, and I hope people steer clear of Rachel Dolezal things. Her kids are clear they don't want any of this, and for their sake, let's protect them. One user pointed out that the Dolezal keeps putting her children in the front of the camera, hoping for another chat. And so some people are really not happy about this whole thing. So Rachel, this is another comment on Twitter. Rachel Dolezal's choice to play and pretend in Black culture has now destroyed the lives of two Black children. And instead of pulling back, pulling back, she throws them in front of the camera, hoping for another check. I really can't with this white woman. So instead of funding more projects from the Black women. One person asked, why don't you take all the money and put it towards projects made by real Black women? The documentary streamed on your site. She's fraudulent and problematic. Why don't you take all the money and put it towards projects made by real women? Keep Rachel Dolezal's documentary and make a documentary on actual Black folks. Thanks. Netflix eventually replied to one of the users' journalist Joy Ann Reid, who had pointed out how problematic the documentary is. And then Reid tweeted, and then she had sold her story to Netflix. Okay, yeah, good night. And then she sold her story to Netflix. Okay, yeah, good night. So Netflix wrote back saying to clarify one thing, like all subjects for our documentaries, Rachel Dolezal did not receive any payment for the project. We worked with the filmmaker Laura Brownson and Roger Ross Williams, who wanted to explore Dolezal's life in a microcosm for a larger conversation piece about race and identity, of course. Okay, so streaming platform continued to say that the documentary is part of a larger conversation, including people who see her actions as an ultimate expression of white privilege. So Dolezal, who was a former NAACP leader, first came under fire back in June of 2015 when she was asked, "Are you African American?" and by local news report during an interview about hate crimes. It was discussed according to USA Today. So there's a small clip or a teaser trailer. This is Rachel pictured here with her son. And it said that she was struggling to make a living ever since this whole thing was uncovered about her, that her life has been difficult since the incident occurred, that she was actually, in fact, a white woman posing as black.
Do you think I do?
Well, why don't you just let it go away?
When something gets destroyed, you have to rebuild it. You can't just pretend that it didn't happen and everything gets fixed.
Why does documentary have to happen then, Mom?
It's called rebuilding.
Book?
It's called rebuilding.
This is going to affect more than just your life.
Some people read, and yeah, what happened affected more than just my life. If somebody has hope, don't take that away from them, because maybe that's all they have.
Trust me, it is going to bite me in the ass. This book coming out and this documentary might just backfire like everything else has backfired.
Is that her choices?
In interviews.
So talk to me. What's going on? Your film, we're taking this risk. I'm putting my kids out there. I'm putting Esther out there. It's hard. And I'm trying to be the gatekeeper and then you're just like handing it over to somebody who can just like be a wrecking ball.
She can identify whatever she wants to be because it's her business. But when it's put in the limelight, I don't think you should be pissing people off more than they already are, unless you want to get bit in the ass from it. And she did not choose her words carefully. And it affected me, it affected my brother. The more that I hear about it, the more that I talk to people about it, the more it just drains.
All about this story.
Nothing that I want people to know.
Okay. A Netflix documentary on Rachel Dolezal. So, what do you think about transracial identity? Is it real? Does it really even exist? Identity. So, it does come up and it's like a new word added to the dictionary now since this whole thing has come out. So transracial is a cross or crossing racial boundaries. And so that's the main base for that term is shown. It is people who are individuals who have a racial identity that differs from their birth race. So consideration transgender identity would seem to apply equally to the transracialism. There is a widespread social perception that it is neither possible nor acceptable to change one's race in the way it might be. And so it goes on to talk about that whole term there. And so her picture is next to the word transracial identity. And then they show Rachel Dolezal, a woman who was born white but identifies as being African American. And so here there is a widespread social perception that is neither possible nor accepts race in the way it might be to change one's sex. So April 2017, the feminist philosophy journal Hypatia published an academic paper in support of recognizing transracialism and drawing parallels between transracial and transgendered individuals. So a publication of the paper resulted in a considerable controversy, including swift condemnation by some academics that was described as a massive internet witch hunt and a hideous smear campaign. The subject was explored in 2016 book by UCLA sociology professor Rogers Brubaker, who argued that the phenomenon, though offensive to many and beset with logical problems, was psychologically real to many people and has many examples throughout history. So a prominent example of the person who identifies as transracial is Rachel Dolezal, who is of European American descent but identifies as African American. And so apparently they probably have had, I'm sure by now, some talk shows. So it's a very short reading on it. So and underneath, you would probably want to look at ethnic plastic surgery, good hair passing, racial identity, skin whitening, and operated. So anyway, the concept is now in full effect, a talking piece, and it is also something that academia has explored in terms of doing research on. And it is noted that it really does exist in the eyes of certain people who experience this. So, give me your comments and thoughts on what you think about that whole concept. There's much to be explored and much to be talked about. It's pretty much open-ended and transracial, and they say within that, some people will use the term cultural appropriation. There's also disambiguation, different concepts that would talk about that particular, placing a child of one racial or ethnic group with adoptive parents of another racial and ethnic group. That's transracial adoption. So transracial identity is having a racial identity or racial expression that it differs from one's birth race, and racial transformation, the process by which a region changes in racial composition. And so, and then it goes on to talk about all the different other concepts that are similar or related to transracial identity. And so it has now come into full effect that this word is a real concept, and it has become an academic. In terms of academia, it has become a topic that has been researched or used for research in schools and universities and whatnot. And so also there have been sites like on the Huffington Post, transracial versus transgender, transracial Florida man born white feels like he's Filipino. Then you have also other people who have similar situations. They may not be as talked about as Rachel Dolezal, but there are in fact other people who they claim that they were born one race, but they in fact feel more another race. I did see another one where there was a black man who he was born black, but he feels more like he's white. And so this is becoming a new concept that people are now exploring. So tell me what you feel about, if you want to leave a comment or your thoughts, and if it even exists to you. But apparently it has become something that has been brought to existence now that we have this documentary, and then we have some other people who have similar feelings, such as Rachel Dolezal. So thanks for listening.